All right, awesome. So welcome to the Battle of the Script Masters. These are our script masters. And who's having fun here in New Orleans? Been great, right, so far? Having a great time. So we'll jump right in. This is going to be a great panel. We have great panelists. My name is Carl Batiste. Some of you folks I know, right? And I'm out of the Bay Area, Danville, California. And I have a team there. I started with KW in 2008. I was rookie of the year for the whole company my first year. How many agents do we have brand new out here? It's great. We love that. So never ask us, don't let that drunk monkey say, maybe this isn't the right market. It's always the right market because it all sits between your ears, right? So I am KW Master Faculty as well as a Master Bold Coach. I've had several of you in my bold room. So I look forward to an awesome session today. So what I'm going to do is introduce you or have the panelists introduce themselves. However, I'm going to ask you a favor before we even start. Number one is at the very end of our panel, I'm going to ask you folks to log on to FSBO, family review, so that you can give your evaluations. That's how we prepare at Keller University to give you the very, very best of everything we do. So your feedback is critically important, and I'll have that at the very end on the slide. Also, when it's Q&A time, because of the size of the room, in order to save us time and get more questions, we're not going to have a mic runner. What we're going to do is have you ask the question, I'll repeat the question, and then have the panelists address it. Fair? And how many of you out here are bold? Awesome. Good. All right, let's start right over here. Brad, would you introduce yourself, tell us who you are, where you're from, your business, how long you've been with KW, and anything else that's relevant.
Great. Yeah, Brad Korn, I'm in the Kansas City market, been selling real estate for 25 years, been with KW about 11 or 12. Been in just about every role there is in Keller Williams. I'm a mega agent, run a team. We do about 100 sales a year. I think it's over 2,200 in my career. I think that's how I ended up getting up here. I've done this a lot. Opened a market center, became the team leader, so I've also used the same scripts to recruit. We had profit the second month we were open. Just been in a lot of deals, coached over 100 agents, so I get to actually hear different markets, so I can really help build the scripts there, and KW International Faculty, so kind of a long list there.
Awesome, thank you.
Hi, I'm Brett Taylor from Phoenix, Arizona. I've been with Keller Williams. This is my 7th year with Keller Williams, my 10th year as a licensee. Last year we sold 370 houses for right at $70 million. Additionally, I own a market center and be with one partner as well.
Awesome, thank you, Brett.
My name is Jeff Quinton from Ocean City, New Jersey, and I just joined Keller Williams January 4th.
Yeah! Great.
And been in the business 23 years, sold over just about 4,000 homes this career, and average about 175 transactions a year.
Great. Thanks, Jeff.
My name is Josh Stern. I'm from Salt Lake City, Utah, and this is my 14th family reunion. I think I've been with the company about 12 years. And last year we did 344 transactions for $97 million in Salt Lake.
It took us 2 years before you win, huh? Great, okay, thanks. So, as all of you know, scripts and dialogues are a huge piece of our business, yes? Yeah. And sometimes we struggle with scripts because they don't sound like us. So we'll flip through the book and say, oh, I don't want to use that when it's corny. I don't want to use that when it doesn't sound like me. I don't want to use this. The news flash is that scripts shouldn't sound like us. That's why they're designed not to sound like us, so that we can win and so that we don't wing it, right? Because winging it gets us in trouble. These guys are the masters of these scripts. And so I'm going to kick right off asking some questions. Now, we're going to talk about buyers, sellers, for sale by owners, and expires. And I'm going to open it up, some of them generally and some specific. So let's kick it right off with the for sale by owner objection. I know we've all heard this before. How many of you work for sale by owners? Okay, good portion of the room. We've all heard this one before, right? We're not in a rush to sell. We actually hear that with every seller, right? So would one of you gentlemen take that question? Let's get a couple answers on that.
I'll just tell you one thing. My scripts are very corny.
Well, they should be.
Anyway, no, I mean, again, with the for sale by owner, one of the scripts that I've always used is, listen, here's the thing you want to think about as a seller, because you want to get the most money possible, right? And then I give them the stupid yes questions. Well, yeah. It's like, well, you know, 3 out of 4 buyers are only working for real estate, and those agents are not even showing them for sale by owner. So you're only getting 1/4 of the market right now through your house. So if you want to get the most money possible, when we hit the market with your property, we're not only going to pick up the one that would have worked with you, but we're going to pick up the other 3, so you get all 4 buyers for your property, which is going to get you the most money possible.
Right, great. Anybody else?
I'll share, you know, again, when we're working on objections, you always want to repeat, approve, and ask the next question. So if they're not in a rush, I would say, I appreciate you're not in a rush. And yet, if I can send her home within the next 30 to 60 days, so that poses a problem for you. And you know what they're going to say, that wouldn't pose a problem. Say, great, what's the best time we can get together? We've got on Monday or Tuesday before.
Awesome. You know, what I heard with both of these gentlemen, their response, was that you have to overlook what you're seeing. What you see isn't always what's reality, right? And if you got only sidebar by the objection, you might start with mumbling. When we do that, we lose energy and confidence. And basically, what I heard here was, went right over their head, and they just went back into motivation. That's what I heard, right? It's motivation in the end.
And also, when you repeat and prove, now you're repeating back what they said. It allows the seller that you actually listen to them. And a good point that Nick already made was the fact that, you know, when you're hitting these objections right in the scripts, you need to listen for what they're not saying.
Right.
Because you listen for what they're not saying. So ultimately, they may not be in a rush, but you need to draw out of them what their motivation is and then close on that motivation.
And the question is the rush really just a way of pushing you off? Or is it really not a rush? Because you overcome that objection. Because of course, you present it off and then take it rather than something.
Well, I was just going to say, you guys, here's the filter to put these scripts through today. How much money do you put in your checking account if you let them think about it and you walk out that door that day and let them think about it? How much money do you make? None. Is it in their best interest for you to walk out that door right then? No. So think about it like this. Anytime any of these situations come up, what I tell people is, imagine that, like, let me ask you a question. How many of you are the absolute best person at that time right there at that person's kitchen table that's going to really look out for their best interests and take care of them? Is it you? Yeah. Right. So if you leave and let them think about it or even talk to another agent, you actually threw them to the wolves, because 80% of the time you're going to land with somebody who does 20% of the business. So you guys are already at 20% because you're here. So you got to take the mindset. It's like, I cannot leave this kitchen table until I find out they are not motivated and they don't want to sell. And then you can leave, you know.
I love that. You should write that down. I've never used that before, and I'm writing it down myself. And that is, how much money do you make going on appointments where you just leave? 0 Zippo. And you know you presented gas in the car, and it's time. Sometimes we don't think about the time that we put in. Anybody else have a comment to add on that one question?
I like to just add a little bit of the pain of waiting, and that is thinking about the mortgage payments that they're going to be paying, the utilities that they're going to be paying. If something went wrong with the house, they're going to have to be the one that fixes it. Or worse yet, if something actually happens with the market, like interest rates going up or supply and homes going up, how much money is that going to cost you over time? And do you want to have a sign in front of your yard, you know, for 3 or 4 months? The perception of a buyer is that there's something wrong with the property or the seller's simply not motivated.
Great. Awesome. Thank you. And of course, they went on the market, right? So, Mr. Keller, what caused you to go on the market in the first place? Right? You're hitting your motivation. Great. Let's move on to question 2. If you bring us a buyer, then we'll work with you. Right? You've heard that before? Anybody want to tackle that one?
So, in our market, I think the biggest obstacle that we found is, right, I want to establish why are they going to FSBO to begin with. So most of our questions are going to go back to why. And you guys all know the reason, right? Why are they going to FSBO? To save the commission. So all of our scripts lead back to that. And so we focus on, by listing with us, if you sell a property yourself and you want to be as active as you want and have an open house 24 hours a day, that's awesome. And you bring the buyer in, if you want us to handle the paperwork, we would charge you 1% for that. But if you don't want to do paperwork, don't pay us anything. So do everything you're doing now if you want, and you don't pay us anything. But if you hire us, let us work, and if we can sell for more money or get the price that you want, then you're only paying if I get a job. So all the Marsh scripts focus on like reducing the risk and creating a reason to sign that day. And that's our approach. We take it kind of regardless of where they go in that FSBO conversation.
Awesome. Great, thank you. Anybody else on that one?
You know, the only thing I do tell them is I say, you know what, and I will do that. Now that I've seen your property, if I have a buyer knowing that you're willing to work with an agent, that I will definitely do that. So I'm planting a seed, work with an agent, right? So then I say, here's what I want you to understand about the market and how it works. See, there's so many things that the public thinks real estate works this way. It doesn't work that way. And I say, so here's the thing. There's 8,000 agents in the Kansas City market. There's 25,000 properties on the market. So when you expect me to bring a buyer, what are the odds that I'm going to find the buyer who's going to pay the most for your house, and I'm one of the 8,000 people, and you're one of the 25,000 properties? Those odds just get diminished. So when we market your property, we actually market it to all 8,000, and you get shown with all 25,000. Now I know how to get you picked out of the list too more often with our marketing.
Great. Another thing you can add in there, and I'm sure you do this with all Brad, is how are you reaching the real estate market? You might be putting it in the newspaper and you may be putting it on Craigslist. How are you reaching the sphere of real estate agents that I have access to on a daily basis, right?
So this is the exact script for that. I say, so here's what I would do if I were you. If you really want to sell your house and you want to take advantage of the market that I have available to me, create a flyer for every single property, all 8,000 agents, go to their offices and put your flyer in their box, and put on there that you're going to pay 4% commission because you're already paying higher than anything else in MLS. That's how you get to market to the properties. They're like, oh, I don't have time to do all that. And I still don't want to pay 4%, so I'll just hire you and let you do it all. It doesn't even make any sense when they do it.
Correct. There's a lot of flaws in the for sale by owners thinking, yes. And like you said, they don't really understand the market. Any other comments on that question at all?
The only thing I would share is one question I always use is what methods are you using to market your home? And really trying to find out what they're doing. Most times we're saying they have a sign in the yard. Maybe they do some little bit internet marketing. In most cases they don't have they're not able to expose the property the way we are. And what Brad said is we have the ability to market the property not only to all the buyers, but also the real estate community and market to them, because it's the chance that the real estate community is going to sell their home many times versus actually selling it ourselves.
Thank you.
I'd use some statistics with them as well, because I think it's NAR that said that on average, for sale by owners sell their homes for 12% less than a real estate agent can. So if they're already agreeing, to pay a buyer agent commission for you to bring a buyer in there, I would simply use the close that if I could show you how to get 12% more for your home and net you 12% more for your home, would you like to meet with me? Because most people are going to have a problem with that. They'll ask other questions, but then you have all these statistics to back that up.
Exactly. Thanks, Josh. And for those of you multiple or single-time gold defenders, in the problem presentation, Diana tells us what's the reason why you're doing it for sale by owner, and you're going to answer to save the commission. Well, what do you think the buyer stands to gain by doing a for sale by owner? Well, they get to buy a house for a little bit less and they get a great house. Well, they're saving the same commission that you hope to save. How does that work, right? There's that 12%. It's gone right off the top, right? So how many of you have a question for the audience? Raise your hand. How many of you, when you see it for sale by owner, jump right to your buyer database and say, well, who do I have for a buyer? Or do you either drive by and say, I'm just going to keep moving, knowing that you're going to spend more fruitful time working your database for listings? How many of you would just love to think about bringing the FSBO buyer? Raise your hand. There's a statistic, right? In the room of 700 agents, 2 people making 0. Raise your hand. So they don't understand they're not a priority.
Well, next time you see a for sale by owner sign, you stop and knock on the door and let them know that sell the help wanted sign out their front door.
There you go. I love that.
I did just sell a for sale by owner 3 days ago, and it was because it's such a competitive market. We were getting beat out on multiple offers going 15,000, 20,000 over. And so we went to a FSBO, and I ended up getting a higher commission than I would just selling one out of the MLS. And I get to put a sign in the yard that shows that we sold the property, so the neighborhood knows a realtor took this property over and sold it.
There you go.
If your market is low in inventory, the other thing that you want to make sure that they understand is that you have a strategy for generating multiple offers. And so oftentimes you can pre-market a property for a short period of time, launch the property live on the market using a grand opening technique. And then once you have all of the buyers list the property during a short grand opening period, you usually end up with what? Multiple offers.
They need to understand that their proposition isn't very motivating to real estate agents, right? If they don't fully understand it. Now, we're going to have opportunity for Q&A at the end, so if you're chomping at the bit to ask this great team a question on for sale by others, hang on to it, write it down, and we'll get there. I'm going to move on to an expiring question. So, what are you going to do differently than the last agent, correct?
It's a great question. I really think that you've got to, I always want to create the problem, right? I always ask them, why didn't the home sell before, right? So we're obviously getting expires. So I want to start with, I want to know why didn't they, the previous agent, sell in their mind? Because if I can uncover the problem correctly, then I can sell to that problem. So if it was lack of marketing, or if it was communication, and I'm going to bend my presentation, and our presentation is really guided to hit all the behavioral styles, but I really want to know which part of the presentation I spend the most time on, right? So whatever route they go with the answer to that question, I'm going to guide my script to that answer. If it was marketing, I'm going to spend my whole time on marketing. If it was, they never showed up here, or no one from their office showed up, I'm going to make sure that happens. I'm going to really gear it at that point to the specific question they have, a specific problem.
So I absolutely love this because sell to the problem. Write that down. Sell to the problem. I love that because he can sit there and address, well, I'm going to do a 7-level open house. I'm going to do a blank, and they may not even, that may not even be bothering them. And what happens on an appointment when you're not in rapport? You don't get it, right? So you said you sell to the social style as well as the problem. And how do you discover the problem?
One of the things we tell our agents to do on Coach Agent on my team is go 3D, right? So the marketing. Tell me more about that. Like, what about the marketing that they do? They say something. Well, what about specifically about that? Tell me more about that. I want to really dig in and get them to really elaborate the problem. And we spend the majority of our time asking questions.
There you go.
And the end will sell. So
that's
go
what
3D.
we're looking for. Sorry, go ahead. That's exactly what we're looking for. Asking questions. Great leaders, great agents ask great questions because the agent that talks all the time does what? Dominates. The agent that asks questions and listens controls. He's got laser focus on that appointment, right, when you ask questions. Because if you just do all the talking, now I haven't heard what from the seller? Zero. Somebody else on that.
Well, I do want to say, because you just made me think of this. Some of the problems they don't even know are a problem. And if my script rubbed you wrong today, here's why. I'm sitting at the table, I don't make any money if I don't take that listing. And if you're behind me, I have to make you look like you are doing nothing, no matter how good you are. So what I did was I took all these book scripts that we learned, and I realized, oh my gosh, the whole MLS realtor system is kind of jacked up. So here's like the script on that. I say, well, when you're marketing with just any other realtor, you get thrown into a pot of 25,000 properties for sale on the market. What really happens behind the scenes is an agent gets a buyer and they sit down and they type in 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom, out spits a stack of 50 homes, right? And then they just hand those 50 homes to their buyer and say, here you go, here's all the properties that match. Well, what we know statistically is that buyers look at how many homes? 6 to 10 homes, right? So really, 10 out of 50 times you're in the look stack, 40 out of 50 times you're in the not look stack. So your odds are totally against you with anybody that doesn't get you out of the not look stack. So even just when I put you in MLS, so here's what I'm doing, I'm dumbing down the MLS because they think the MLS is higher on commission because they all use the same system. So I say the MLS system does not sell properties. All it does is make your property available. Oh, and there's another one.
That's awesome.
Most agents don't even fill in all the stuff or put in all the pictures. If you choose an agent that doesn't fill every space in and put in all the pictures they can do, you actually drop down the list. You're just less desirable, so you're just increasing your odds in the not list.
And I love that. How many of you gone on MLS and you saw a beautiful picture of a toilet and a sink, and then you go to the other room and here's a closet with clothes hanging in it, right? How does that sell a home? I would absolutely love that.
So what will I do different? I will get you pulled out of the not look stack and added to the look stack because of my reputation with the realtors in the marketplace, which you can't interview anybody for that. And I got one other little trick and a real good reason why they pull you out. So if you were at Mega Camp several years ago, you know what my commission is, and I don't know if we can share it here. Tony got permission to legally give it one time. But let's just say, take whatever you do and add 1 to 2% to it, and that's where I am. I'm setting them up for that when I go over the net sheet later, when I say, I got another little trick to get you pulled out of the not look stack and add it to the look stack.
Selling, you're selling your value. Who else has like interest?
So the question I would ask is, what will you expect from the next agent you choose? And depending on what they say, I'm going to go right back to whatever they expect. So they might say, well, I expect marketing. Okay, good. I'm going to go over a 31-point marketing plan and we get together. What's a good time we can get together? I'm available Monday or Tuesday at 4. I'm going to go right back to ask them what they're expecting, and then I'm just going to close the appointment. But I'm not going to share with them exactly my 31-point marketing plan. I'm going to go just tell them whatever they're expecting, and I'll be hitting with that when you close.
So that's great, Jeff. What I heard is don't list them over the phone, because you know what you don't want is, Jeff, thanks for the 25 minutes worth of great marketing tips. If we have more questions, we'll call you. Brett shows up, Josh shows up, and then one of them ends up getting the listing because you don't have the appointment, right? Give something compelling and then close for the appointment. Josh?
I like to think that the average agent practices the 3 Ps of marketing, and this is passive marketing, and that is they place a sign in the yard, put the property across the MLS, and we live in Utah, so they pray it'll sell. And so, we're aggressive with the marketing, which means that we're reaching out to directly, calling directly 25, 50, 100 buyers a day looking for the right buyer for the property. And you guys all in this room have a tool called KWLS. I like to rebrand that and say that we put your property on a national MLS system. And as a result, by the time we go live on your property, we're on over 350 websites. But what Jeff had said is, you don't want to sell any of these people that over the phone.
Guys, don't miss that script because I think we hear that one a lot, right? We're on 350 websites. What you need to do is compare yourself to the competition. The other agents will probably get you on about 100 websites because the MLS does that. Our company takes it to an additional 250. You got to dumb down the other agent, even if they're not even meeting another agent. They got another hiring right now.
Yeah, selling your value is all about your value proposition. I remember Gary Keller in, 2009, 2010, General Reunion saying, when everybody else takes a left, you take a right. In fact, you talk about our industry. I don't know, our industry have a big fallout rate? Yes, right, we're self-employed. Fortunately, people like yourselves send yourself to training so that you can become awesome like our panel, right? And yet, if you don't differentiate yourself, we're like a herd of wildebeest, right? We all look the same, we're the same color, we all run down to the water hole, getting ready to get attacked by the crocodile, right? You've got to be the perfect wildebeest, something different. And I love that piece, because you only get it, it's game time, right, when you're there. You don't practice when you're on stage. You practice when you're in the market center. Great. Any other comments on that question? Great, let me move to another question. So we're going to talk a little bit about sellers. So would you be willing to reduce your commission? And if you are, we would be glad to work with you. Sure.
All right. So I always say, well, be careful when you ask that question. And I pause. Pauses are great. Diana's taught us the pause is powerful, right? Pause is great. Be careful asking that question. And you know what they're thinking right now? What do you mean by that? And I say, what I mean by that is, and they're like, oh my God, it's in my head. That's master scripting, right? So what I mean by that is, what do you want to do? Save the commission or make more money at the end? Would you like to put more money in your pocket, or are you trying to save on the front end? Because I'm actually making my sellers 3% higher sale prices than the average agent. Now, what that means to you in this $200,000 house, I'm saying I get a house like yours $6,000 more. So you want to save $2,000 or make $6,000, right? Because you're a positive $4,000 on that deal. Now, the other thing I do on the commission is I actually break it out. And I'll write my commission. Did I do that? Okay. And then I write the average commission, which is 6%. And there's even agents that will do it for 5%. And then I say, this is where I say, I'm probably giving you way more information than you want to know right now, but as a seller, you need to know this information. I draw 2 arrows off of it, and I say 2.5, 2.5. 2 arrows off here, 3 and 3, and mine is 3.5, 3.5, right? I say, now, take the 3.5 where we pay out the other agents and bring your buyer. I draw 2 more arrows. Say the company's going to take 50% of that. It costs us about 50% of our commission to run a real estate business, right? So on the 5% guy, 2.5 is they're getting 1.25%, right? So I'm going to pay out more. But on the listing side, I only have 1.25% to live off of and market your property. So the 6% guy, here's 3%, so it's 50%. He's got 1.5%. So he's got a little bit more money. And those agents, what they'll do is they'll try and add once in a while. They'll try this. They might do a postcard campaign. They'll do everything on the planet that's free. Open houses, sign flyer boxes out front, anything that's free. And Mr. and Mrs. Seller, if that's free, you can do that yourself and save the whole commission, right? So on us, that same thing happens. I got 30% goes out, but I take this extra 0.5% and I spend money right now marketing your property to get you more exposure than everybody else. And then I make the same amount as the 6% guy. So you see how I just did a whole lot of things right there. And you're just like, oh, I'm paying in the same, but I'm making more money and get more marketing, and I'm just educating.
Yeah, it's changing the way you look at things, and you look at change, right? And I love what you said about that, throwing that challenge out there as far as making money. And my line is, hey, if the discounter has a choice between paying your mortgage and paying for marketing, because they priced your home at a commission so low, which do you think they're going to choose? They're not going to spend that money on marketing. They're going to spend it on what they need for themselves. That's their income, right?
So there are some scripts out there where we show the dollars and you take them back. Here's what I do with all my scripts. I take that and I internalize it, and then I spit it back out. But everything that comes back out is what's the benefit to them. They do not give a crud about us, how much we're making, any of that. So everything's about them when I change these scripts and tweak it a little bit.
I like benefit is close on this, and it's no. Next question.
That would have been a lot.
That's a great
script.
And I have to be honest, that's the one that we use most often, okay, well, I just got asked. You know,
that happens.
So you guys have to realize you don't have to always think overcomplicated. You know, a simple no. Any other questions? Sometimes it's going to go a lot farther than you think. And then, you know, what Brad was talking about is very important. If you're a newer agent, it's hard to say, well, my list-to-sale ratio is X amount higher than the average agent. And so what you need to do is you need to look at your office, your market center, and figure out what the market center's list-to-sale ratio is, and go back and look at the rest of your board and see what the difference is. And this is really important because Brad talked about numbers. So if he's selling it for 3% more than the average agent, you're going to say, we sell our homes, not me, but we, right? Because if you're a newer agent, you're talking about your office. Well, we sell our homes for on average 3% more than the average agent. That's not as important as, honestly, that means it's $6,000 more in your pocket. What you want is the most amount of net. And that's literally what Brad is saying. It's not about the commission. It's about their net.
One thing I want to add is, again, if it's over the phone or in person, but they say, you know, we cut the commission, whatever it may be, I'll go back and say, okay, outside of the commission, have you already gone ahead and chosen me to work with? Have you chosen me to list your home? So I want to make sure that there's no other issues. Now I know, okay, so they've said, yeah, I think you're good. All right, good. Let's go ahead and talk about the commission at this point. So in my script, it's going to be, is there any other issues? Any other unanswered questions? Any other thoughts you might have that I can help answer? And then I'll handle the objections script.
I love that. Right.
We really go on the educational side, right? Because I don't believe that sellers, I used to think that all sellers were cheap. There was a class they went to try to find reduce commissions. And then I realized that agents we don't do a great job explaining how the transaction works. The sellers don't know, right? They believe if they list a $200,000 home, they're paying us $12,000, right? That's what they think. And so I do use the VIN I use the VIN Kenny $6 method. Each dollar in front of you represents a percent. So when you hire me, with each $3, I'm going to give to the other agent, because we want all of the agents working to sell your property. So that leaves you with $3, and each dollar in front of you gets 1%. The first dollar is what I take home and go feed my family, right? This is pay taxes on. The second dollar, my cost to be in business, you know, my continuing education, my brokerage fees, everything it takes to get here. And the third dollar is what I actually invest into marketing your company. So I know you had someone else come out here, maybe his name was Brad, I'm sure he's awesome, right? And I'm sure he could do it for 5%. Which dollar do you think he got rid of, right? He still has to feed his family, he still has costs. He's just not going to market your home. And so we do that. So that's what we charge, right? And we just toe the line every time. But I really think that you go educational versus combative. I mean, it's just so easy. Most sellers have no idea how that it works. And when we explain it, they're always shocked. Like, oh, I didn't know that that's how it works. And so that's been we literally laid $6 out when we set the table.
And so you know, right, that logic makes you think, emotion makes you act. When you educate, you're appealing to the logic, right? And the motivation to sell appeals to their emotion, and when you couple the two of them, you close an escrow, you convert, you close a buyer. The other thing, or seller, the other thing I love that I think you all hit on, and I think you actually stated it, was let the sirens do the heavy lifting. All too often, we feel like we have to fill every gap on a presentation with either being confrontational or information, and when we do that, we're regurgitating statistics and information and scripts, and then all of a sudden we're done, and now what? You know, every time you lay out a script, let the silence do the heavy lifting, because the more they process it, especially those high C's, how many high C's out there, right? And those are your high I's, and you have to pull back on that. You have to let silence work for you. Because when their brain starts twisting around things, what happens? The logic makes them think, emotion makes them act, and start to realize, man, this guy's a guy that really can sell my house. So don't be afraid to let silence go to work for you. Great, let's move on to the next question. You haven't sold anything in the neighborhood before. Josh, did you start with that one? What makes you think you can sell in my neighborhood?
I can appreciate that. You're right, we haven't sold anything in this neighborhood. However, all of the communities that are surrounding you, we have sold homes. Now, we sell on average a property a day. And what you're really saying is that you want somebody who's going to be able to expose your property to the most amount of buyers possible. And that's exactly what it is that we're going to do. Our average time on the market is less than half of the market average. If the idea that you haven't sold a property in a community is not an objection that you're going to get very often, but when you do get an objection like that, you really want to just look around your community and say, well, you know, honestly, we've sold. And when I say we, you're using your office stats. If you don't have your own stats, we've sold property around all of these communities. What the seller really wants is they want to know that you can market property to a buyer that's going to work for them.
Great. Anybody else?
I mean, I just used it on 2.6 million. I didn't even know we had $2.6 million homes in Kansas City. So I had to really bring my game, right? And they did. I've never heard it in, I don't even have 20 years of real estate. I've just never heard it. And she used it on me 3 weeks ago. And I said, well, here's the thing you got to understand. See, I know my numbers real well in MLS. Say of all the upper bracket luxury homes that have sold, I don't see one agent selling all of them in a neighborhood. So again, it goes back to what's the reputation with the agents. It's not about how many sold in this neighborhood, because there's, you know how many neighborhoods there are in Kansas City? I would love to get them all. In fact, you can help me, tell all your friends to call me, I'll make them all more money, and I'll just take them over. But you're not going to find one person that sold every home in the neighborhood. You want to use somebody, use the right agent that does a lot of properties all the time and knows how to market those properties.
Great. So I want a ton of marketing on my house. And it might come with so-and-so's, my friend of mine in the neighborhood sold a house and their agent didn't use a lot of marketing. I want a ton of marketing. Brett, can you give me that?
I think the way we approach is we came up with and everyone's got 31 points. Mine's 32 points now. You just want to come up with
He's talking clearly right now.
Clearly, I had 31, but I don't know. Got to go to 32 now, based on expanding.
Exactly.
You want to come up with a way that makes you look great. And I think it's just having a plan, having something documented about what you naturally do, and find a way to make the ordinary seem extraordinary. Like when I explain to, when I'm a buyer, when I explain to a buyer like how the MLS works, it makes it sound like I invented it, right? Like I make it seem so incredible that I'm going to set you up with a search portal. Like I make it seem like this is like I got a team of engineers doing this. But it's the same thing on your presentation side. Your marketing's got to seem like you invented the internet, right? And so I think that we have ours just boils down to our 31-point marketing plan. So when they say, what's season marketing? Well, no one does more selling than we do. We're on 356 websites, translated to 8 languages. I'm the largest real estate company in the world now. And now your buyers aren't just local, they're global. So we pitch the whole global the buyers go down. So we just go with but everything bounces back to our marketing plan.
Great.
The one thing that I stress on when you ask me about marketing is I say, I gotta ask you guys, what's the number one piece of marketing you can ever do? Anybody know? It's the price. So I go back and say, well, the number one piece of marketing I can ever do is make sure that we price your property properly. So let's go ahead and make sure that we're priced right. And I go right back to the CMA and make sure the price is right first. Because it doesn't matter what we do, 350 websites, it doesn't matter any of that stuff, right? We put it on billboards, we do all kinds, but if it's not priced right, it doesn't matter. So I go right back to the price and make sure that the seller and I are in alignment with the price.
I love that, Jeff. And you know, it doesn't hurt to have them put a buyer's hat on. Say, let's put the buyer's hat on today, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, right? If you pulled up in front of a house that you saw in the MLS that's overpriced by $50,000 and the marketing material is impeccable, would you be willing to pay full price because the marketing is impeccable, or do you want to pay fair market price? Right? You don't buy a gallon of milk for $3 more because the flyer at one grocery store is beautiful. You pay fair price for milk. So I hear what you're saying there, and that's an important piece. I love making the seller put the buyer's hat on. When we go look at homes, Brad, next week, how are you going to feel about a home that's $50,000 overpriced, even though the marketing? So, and I love what you said, Brad, about laying out your value proposition. You don't even have to get into what's a ton of marketing. If you've got an awesome marketing plan, right, then lay it out there. Josh, how do you do that?
I've only got 17 points.
You got to double it, because you have to hit 34, right?
32.
Oh, 33 that you need to get.
I've only got 17. It's pretty effective, 17. I think, a couple of things, just getting back into, the seller's mindset, is rebranding, like Brett was saying, you're rebranding, it's like you invented the internet. I mean, you all have this tool called the KWFR system. If you happen to be in an area where there's a lot of relocation that occurs, then what you want to do is call the KWFR system, a national MLS system, because nobody else is going to call it that. Right? So call it something that it is. That's what they want. We do a lot of pre-marketing on our properties, so we actually do what's called circle prospecting. So we're actually making calls to our buyer database. We're sending out information to the top 20% of agents, who sell to 80% of the properties in our area. We call that Freddy's principle. And we explain these things to the sellers. The pre-marketing strategy is very important because you have, professional photos, and that's something that you want to emphasize. Because the first time you sell a property, you're going to sell it in a two-dimensional world. So you use professional photos, you send out invitations, you make phone calls, around the area, you hold the showings, put it live on an MLS on a Wednesday, hold the showings until the grand opening on a Saturday, do a grand opening for 1 hour, maybe 2 hours, and then all of the buyers are coming into the property at the same time.
Right?
So now that you guys know that, it's like, okay, so some of the agents you may be talking to need 32 things to sell your home, some of them need 17, we only need 5. The 5 that get you 3% more, $6,000 more dollars.
That's right.
But here's the thing. Here's what I know happens, is you're sitting there at that table and you want the listing really bad. Go back to what we said earlier. Are you the best person to help them? Is it in their best interest to use you? Then stop selling. You know what I'm saying? Don't try to, because as soon as here's what's going to happen, they're going to say, well, we want a lot of marketing. Oh, great, well, we do a whole bunch of stuff. Let me open it up. And you just start going through everything. You just lost right there. That's not what they wanted to see. When you go 3D, I mean, why do you ask me that question? What happened? What happened in the past? Where did that go? And then I just dig down until I find out. Well, we just didn't feel like the other agent did anything. Oh, well, we're getting 3% more. We filled everything in. You're on 350 websites. But I've already gone over all that stuff. So I'm just looking for that missing piece.
It's great. So when someone asks a question, it's really, in your head, what is the real question? Have you ever read the book QBQ? The question behind the question? There's always a question behind the question, right? Jeff, what if they say, let's price high, we can always come down if we need to? Nobody's ever heard that out here, right? Never ever? We don't want to leave any money on the table, right? Those sellers and buyers, they know all the objections, they know all the script. So Jeff, how would you approach that with a seller?
So I would say I can appreciate you want to list high, and may I share with you why that may cause a problem? So I'll go back to another question. What do you mean? Well, if you price your property too high, buyers won't even bother coming to look at it. And I'd rather you price it right at the market and have buyers come in with offers and create a bidding war and get you that price versus starting too high and not getting any at all. Would you like a bidding war on your property?
And then don't say it, right? Let the silence be the, because if you keep talking, you're not giving them enough time to reason the objection handler. Right?
And then I'll just add something in all of this. When you know your scripts, you know your dialogues, you know what to say, how to say, when to say, and you have that confidence, the objections don't show up. So when you learn it and you come in and you have that strength and that confidence, they see that. And when you have that power and you present, those objections don't show up. So you got to role play, you got to really learn the scripts, and you got to learn the objections.
Josh, would you say that based on what Josh just said, that if you have an objection handler, 3 or 4, back to all of you guys, you're more present and more in rapport, eye to eye, with that seller and have a better chance of converting it to a listing because you're confident, you're comfortable, right?
You're directing the conversation so you're no longer thinking. You're in real time. And that's very important. It's, the best thing to do is memorize the scripts as if you're memorizing the lines to a play. And when you're on stage, they're memorized, then you can act them out. But if you have to think about it, it's going to be a challenge. You're going to fumble. And I like sellers who, this is a good one right now for us because sellers think their house is worth a lot more now, right? So have you guys found that their house is usually worth about 10% more than the house that was right next door? And why did they say that?
Their house.
But because it's always nicer. It's always nicer. Their house is always nicer. I mean, it just, so here's the thing, and it's nicer to them because it's their home, right? It's not a house, and so we have to turn it back into a house. And one of the easiest ways, to do that is start talking to them outside of the house, outside of the home. So we use analogies. So one that I like a lot is the fishing analogy. Mr. Seller, you do have the best boat, you've got the best fishing gear, and you've got the best bait. You see, the fish are biting at 40 feet. You cast into the water and let it go 10 feet down. Are the fish going to bite? No. So if we lower the bait another 10 feet, now we're at 20 feet. Are the fish going to bite there? No, they're not going to bite there. So if we lower it another 20 feet and we're at 40 feet, is that where the fish are biting? And that's where we create a free feeding frenzy. And hopefully we have more than one offer that comes in as a result.
So the only thing I'll add to here with scripted, guys, I challenge you to do this year. Okay, you're running, think of yourself as running a Fortune 500 company, right? If you guys want to be average, Gary was talking about a general session. You're a CEO of a Fortune 500 company. This year, my research is to know what was the last thing they asked when I left the table without the listing, and have a little pocket notebook and write it down for the whole year. And you're going to see what objections or what scripts you really need. So this was me like 20 years ago. I'm going to all these classes like, I've been to this overpriced class like 12 times. Why don't I just take that out and so I don't have to worry about it? Why do I have to this positioning and the days on market and my commission? So those were the 3 that I tackled, and I just put them into my listing presentation. Like they said, these don't usually come up. So we use the objections, but through information. So I literally go, here's how the market works. We haven't even gone into this objection yet. I say it's supply and demand. So Mr. and Mrs. Seller, we're going to look at 3 things today. We're going to look at what the neighborhood sold for. We're going to look at what your 4-bedroom, 2-story, 3-car garage, 10 years old, so forth in the area. Now, I guarantee you are not going to like these 2 numbers, but don't react yet, okay? That's just what the highest one was, what the average one sells for, and what the below average one sells for. We're going to know the high, low, average. The third report I'm going to look at is what would the buyers be looking at. They're just going to be looking at 4 bedrooms, say 5 to 15 years old, or 1 to 20 years old. So we're going to look at your competition, right? So when we look at the solds, the number's going to be down here. I promise you're not going to like it. But when we look at the for sales, they're all going to be way up here, right? So all we have to do is position you just under the crazy people. And you're going to get you more for your house than you're supposed to get. and either look like you're the best priced one on the market. So where that script came from is that the houses are sitting on the market, they're overpriced, and if they still said something, my next script would be, well, while you're priced up there, you just sold the other seller who was overpriced, who's now priced right. You know what? You don't get that buyer back. All you do from the day that sign goes in the yard is lose opportunities, and you're selling your competition. We want that next buyer off the market because we don't know when the next one's coming after that.
Great, right?
I just my pitch on the overpriced listing is listings are not like fine wine. They don't get better as they sit on the market for a long period of time. Listings are more like milk. So we've got about 2 weeks to get a lot of interest before this thing goes back, right? That's what we're going to do.
It's great. One thing, the other thing I like is, and I'm curious to all these guys, add humor, don't tell jokes. People love humor because it's a way of building rapport. Jokes can go sour just like a gallon of milk if it doesn't go over right. You can always add humor though, and it softens the discussion, especially when you're having a tough discussion.
When they chuckle, you got the listing.
Yeah, you got the listing.
And then one other thing I see a lot of times in our market, it's a price war and a beauty contest all happening at the same
Oh,
time.
that's great. Love that. Yeah, good. Okay, we're going to shift into some buyer script. Anybody work with buyers up here? Hey, great. So, you know, we need to sell our house first. Josh, how do you handle that?
That's really good news. That's what I was hoping you would say that. So what I'm hearing, Carl, is that you need equity from your home in order to purchase your next property.
Yes.
Is that right? Just so we're being honest, I'm going to have to say. So it's really going to go a lot like this. Well, great. What I'd like to do is be able to set up a time that I can come over, take a look at your property. While I'm there, we're going to go ahead and cover a few topics. One is just a staging standpoint. It's how you can get the most money for the least amount of money extra, if you will. And while we're there, we're going to take a look at what your neighbors have been selling their properties for, so we know exactly how much to invest in your next property.
Yeah, you know, Josh, I'm really good with that. My biggest concern is I can't afford to leave my family without a house. So what if I put an offer in, and this is real world for folks, right? What if I put an offer in and I get accepted, and we don't sell my house? I'm worried about what happens. Maybe we should see if we can buy contingent, right? How's that work in the last few years when the market's great, right?
Oh, boy.
Yeah, so that.
You know, I can appreciate what it is that you're saying, Carl. And honestly, the amount of time that it's going to take us to get this property up on the market, it's important that we go ahead and get the process going right away. Especially with the new trip laws that are there, most closings are going to take 45 days. If we look at our average time in the market of being 30 days for our team, we add 45 days on that, we're 75 days out from being able to get your property moved. And what you don't want to have happen is go and offer on a property that you can't buy. Isn't that right?
Yes.
Okay. So what we need to do is get together now so we get the process going tonight.
Love it. Great. Brett? Nothing to add to 30 minutes? No? Okay. Great.
You know, I'll
Brett's
just tell them, because I mean, they all come up, so.
They do, right.
So I figure out how to master it quick because I need that money in my account. I don't leave until I get it right. So I basically just say, that's perfect. What you want to do is not miss any buyer opportunities. So you want to be able to go into that purchase strong. Here's what I know I think is your issue. You're worried that if I put a sign in your yard tonight and it sells tomorrow, I bring you an offer tomorrow and you haven't even found a house. That's probably what you're most worried about, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so here's the thing. If I put the sign in the yard, or when I put the sign in your yard tonight, and if I bring you an offer tomorrow and it's $10,000 under your asking price, what would you tell me? Would you take it? We don't even have a house to go to right now. No, we wouldn't take it and say, what if that buyer says, I'll give you full price, but I want you out in a week? What would you say? Brett, we don't have a house yet, right? It's like, so what if that buyer said, I'll give you $20,000 more and I'll wait till you find a house?
Yeah.
You would say, yeah, they're like, we take it, right? And I said, so if that buyer's out there right now today and you wait to put your house on the market, we don't get the guy that's going to pay 20 grand more and we wait till your house sells. And I can only tell you that because I've done it. When people are building homes and it's a 6-month plan, you might miss a buyer or two because it's not going to work, but you'll never sell too early. You'll always sell for the most money when you don't have to sell.
Right. Yeah. Anything to add to that?
I would just say that, what I'm hearing you say is it's most important about you finding a home first, is that right? I said, yeah. I said, well, let's go ahead and get together and then get your home on the market. And then we're going to go ahead and get you set up and show you all the properties that you need to go that match your criteria. And then we'll just negotiate a long extended closing date. So I'm going to go back to getting on the market and extended closing date.
So it's brand ambassadorship, logic, and then don't forget to throw out how solid of a buyer they're going to be in the market if they're contingent or it's not even listed. How many of you have attempted that with somebody who will absolutely not list their home and wants to write an offer on a home in a market where homes are getting multiple offers and it's either cash or non-contingent offers? So it's important to make sure you position, make sure they understand the strength of their position as a buyer if their home is not, if they're hanging on to their home for dear life. They're not going to get a house, right, if in a multiple offer market. Now, it may be a differently shifted market.
One thing to add, to the last one I was saying is, what if you could get a buyer right now, buy the property, close within the next 30 to 45 days, and then you actually have possession of your own home that you're in now, or rent it back for, say, the next 6 months? What if we could find that perfect buyer?
Exactly.
And so that's what I say. You have all the options when you list right now tonight. You don't have as many options later on.
You can always take your house off the market, right? And we don't want that. And yet that oftentimes gives them permission and comfort, right, to go ahead and make a move, sign the listing agreement. Okay, what about the question, well, this is all great information. Jeff, I need to talk to my wife.
Sure. So I understand it says work for you to talk to your wife, and she's a decision maker, right? So I'm going to always be going back, repeat. And yet 2 minds are better than one. What will you be talking about? I'm going to get from them what is the husband going to be talking about, and try to find that out. And the reason why they're going to say that most of the time is there's an unanswered question, there's something that's going on that we haven't been able to provide them. I'm going to find out exactly what that is, and then handle that something like that.
And there's a theme here. And what's the theme? Ask questions. You can literally close an entire listing appointment asking questions, yes? More than talking. There's a time to tell and there's a time to ask. And with a listing appointment or with a buyer, 90% of the time we're asking. The tell part is, here's the statistic. The rest of it is asking the question, behind the question, behind the question.
Here's 3 questions in case you can't think of it, because you're like on stage and they're looking at you and you're, oh God, I'm supposed to ask questions. So here's what you do, you say, tell me more about that.
That's easy one, right?
What do you mean by that? And this is my favorite.
Great.
They just keep talking. They just keep talking.
And let them talk. The more they talk, the more you understand how to tighten and get more into laser focus.
What I ask is, they say, I need to talk to me after I think about it, is we go, I definitely can understand that, and I know that you probably don't want to get locked into something that you can get out of, that's maybe the fear that you have. And so that's why we created our one-day listing. I'm only asking for your business as a new sign tonight for 24 hours. And if in the next 24 hours you're not mesmerized by what we do and all the work we're going to show you we're going to do, you can cancel any time for any reason to shoot me an email. So there's no reason you can't sign tonight.
Just give me permission.
Yeah.
And there's other ways to wrap a bow around that. We call ours just a day-to-day contract. And so if you're unhappy with our service, there's no strings attached, you can cancel. And those are very effective to those types of objections. It's not like we're always offering a cancellation or an out, are we? No, we're using them, those particular outs, which act as an addendum to our contract to help handle those objections. Right?
Right. How many times do people say, well, I don't want to get locked into a contract? I almost never hear that, and yet that's fear. And when you address it up front, you save it as an objection. Don't worry about objection. Jeff, do you have a comment on that piece at all? You give me that question.
I would try to call her right then.
Say that again?
I said I would just try to call her right then. Well, great, let's get her on the phone.
Right. Right. It's great. I'm afraid to buy at the top of the market. Anybody want to tackle that?
I can appreciate that, especially having gone through the housing economy we did in 2007 through 2010. But one of the things I want to consider right now is actually, it sounds to me like the most important thing to you is the cost of owning the property, right? Okay. Did you know if interest rates went up 1%, that the cost of owning that property actually goes up by 10%? Right? And we could look at it the other way. If interest rates go up by 1%, you're affording a 10% less home. So I think the most important thing to you and what I'm hearing is the cost of owning the home. Is that right?
That's right.
Okay, let's go ahead and buy it.
Awesome. That's a great script. Yeah.
Same thing, go back to the payment versus what they're paying for it. And then break down the payment and show them the value right now, interest rates being as low as they are. And now is the time they can afford more for less.
Right.
Leverage the affordability, go with the slides from some of Gary's visits of the interest rates. They're at all-time low. I think just focus back on affordability.
And this is actually taken out of context, because how many of you have been through Bold? The most ultimate script that works on everything is, so where are you going? When do you need to be there? What's important about that date, right? So that objection right there is, so you're telling me that the grandkids being there for the summer to have them swim in your pool in your backyard isn't as important as just staying here. You know, I go back to that big why of why they told me that at the very beginning of the, I get that a lot, whatever that is. I keep talking about the grandkids and whatever.
That's right. Go back to motivation, and it's always linked to pain or pleasure. So remember, and I think, I mean, one of you said, don't just keep throwing statistics at buyers and sellers. You have to appeal to the pain and pleasure element, right? It's true. It's true, and I love it. The other thing I picked up on what all of you have said in the script, and this important thing to remember, is when you're having dialogue with buyers and sellers, it's important to validate how they feel. Even if you don't agree with them, I can certainly appreciate that, Mrs. Smith. I don't know how you feel, and I want the most money for my house. I can certainly appreciate that, Mr. Buyer. I don't want to spend money on a home that isn't going to be of value or get equity out, right? So validate their concerns. You don't have to agree with them, because if you agree with them, then they pull you into their court. Validating is getting to agree. Can I ask a question before we open up to the group? Would you guys summarize in a CNN statement, starting from Brad all the way down, why was this topic such a hot topic for you guys to say, yeah, I'm all in on a panel?
Well, first of all, I've done it long enough now that I'm so comfortable with it, and really what I realized is it's the same script over and over and over again. There might only be a couple dozen that I even use, but my whole life is scripted. Like, that's even scripted. I've said that a million times. So it's so simple, and it's just like you're getting them there that much faster, and to help you really understand that and not be afraid of scripts. I mean, you guys heard my scripts up here. They're not written in any books anywhere, but it is the scripts that were written in the books, and I internalized them and spit it back out. So I was really excited about it because one of the books I read was Influence by Chaldean. And in there, he talks about just changing one word. So I've become a master of just changing one word. So what I've done is I've taken realtor language out of everything. It takes me a little longer to say stuff. So I don't say price, I say position. Price is gone. I don't even use it. I say we're going to reposition in the market. We're going to look at your position. We're going to check that out. When I say MLS, I say we're going to put you in the computer system that all the realtors use. When a buyer calls about the sign call, I can send you the properties the minute they get to market from the computer system that all the realtors are using. Because when I say the MLS, they'll say, oh, you mean the MSL? It's like, yeah, that's soccer, right? That's not the computer. Yeah. CMA, MLS. They don't get all that stuff.
So you're right as far as trends. I ditched the word commission. I use compensation. Because I want them to know they're paying for a service. Commission, to me, this is my perspective, sounds like commission.
We like investment.
What's that?
We like the word investment.
There you go. That's also, right? Because it's giving and taking. Brett, how do you summarize your thoughts on it?
Well, my thoughts are that you can be, anyone in this room can get up on the stage and have the productions these guys are having if you say the right thing and you say it enough times. So I was passionate about this topic. I think when I coach our team, if you say the right thing and you say it enough, whether that's 3 hours a day or whatever it is for you to get those skills, you can create success.
I was looking forward to this, and one of the reasons is I actually prospect every single day, every single day. I never miss a day, and so it's very natural for me to be able to share scripts and dialogues and objections because I do it day in, day out, and never ever miss. So when I was asked to be up here, I said, yeah, no problem. This is what I do. It's second nature.
I definitely think talent is overrated. So if you're looking up here going, oh, I can never do that, I disagree. It literally is, everything is a script. Every single thing is a script. Get great at scripts. I mean, great at scripts. And over time, you're going to begin to win. You don't get great at scripts by not practicing scripts every day. You just don't. I mean, in your office, it would be an absolute shame if you're not practicing scripts with somebody 5 days a week for 15 or 20 or 30 minutes a day until you can turn these lines into something that's usable for you. Most of us are repelled by scripts because it's not us, it's a script. Well, scripts work, you don't. So learn the scripts.
You know, when you're really good at your scripts and you call the seller the wrong name through the whole presentation, you say, look at this in there.
Right? So, and I couldn't agree more with the comment on script. They're not supposed to be comfortable when you first learn them. Gary talks about learn the scripts, internalize them, then customize them. We always ask you to learn them verbatim first simply because most of us don't like them. So you have to start somewhere, right? And then you customize them. Here's the kicker with that. When you think about riding a bike, how do you know how to ride a bike?
Thank you.
Did you get on a bicycle at whatever, 5 years old or 6 years old, whatever, and just ride a bike? How many of you fell off the bike? And did your parents say, no, don't get on that bike, it's dangerous, go sit and watch TV. Get back on the bike and what? Practice. And then 3 hours later, what do you do? Riding down the road. No, look, Mom, no hands. And yet it wasn't comfortable, was it? Man, I'll tell you, buyers and sellers know the objections inside and out. And like this panel said, there's not that many. I want to sign in the yard, I don't want to open houses, I don't want to pay this price, I don't want to spend this much money on commission. What are you going to do? It's really limited, right? It's about 10 or 12 objections, and if you know 3 to 4 of those so masterfully, like these gentlemen displayed, you're going to close transactions.